when you look at overarching policies around so many other things that we're looking at right now that have an effect on this, I was just having a conversation about school choice and all kinds of things that weigh into and could have a significant effect in terms of property values and everything else. Because if you enact some sort of a school choice model, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter where you live, you can go to any particular school, and so therefore those kinds of things don't now, all of the other amenities that are around some of our neighborhoods then would be the driving factors, but schools would not be the one. And everybody knows about school premiums. I mean, I just had a conversation with a friend of my wife's who's looking to move from Prince George's to Montgomery, and her very first question was, well, I wanted to talk to you because I know you're the chair of the education committee. I mean, that's what's on the that's what's on the minds of folks. And so, my first response to her was that all of our schools are terrific, but at the same time, we also know that not all of our schools are doing everything for all of our kids like we want them to. And so that's where we have to get to as well. And so there's a strategy that involves, and so I'm happy hearing Dr. Zuckerman talk about this and I'm happy to hear the board continue to talk about this in terms of the continued work that we do within our MCPS walls to ensure that all of our kids, regardless of economic background, regardless of what neighborhood they're in, continue to provide for all of our kids. And so that's one step. But on the other side, I think tying in our planning processes. And I just always, it's easier for me because I see them as prime examples of how things are unique. But Kingsview Middle, that's right next to Germantown Recreation Center and has the fields that are there, that's the reason why they have the fields that they do, that they utilize, and that co-location matters. And so having Matsunaga be co-located with Longview and actually having more play space than they would normally have, but it's because you've actually got two schools that are there. It's those kinds of things that actually are the direction that I think we'll need to head in terms of our creativity. What was accomplished by this work group is crossing off one that we looked at in terms of creativity, but might not give us the best bang for our buck. And that's important too, because we're not going to always, just as a scientist tries his experiment, he's always not going to find that cure on the first iteration. But it is continuing to look at ways in which we can try and make this work. I think a lot of it is tied with planning. A lot of it's tied within our school system in terms of continuing to make sure that we're striving to address the achievement gap and all the other challenges that we face. But then part of it is also when it comes to our policy of how we want to look at schools in the future. And what we're going to say is the next normal for us. Understanding that, look, the biggest driver for us is that we don't have the land. While it seems as though we have some spaces and some potential sites that appear to be on the map, the reality is that that's just maybe meeting the need of what we have currently. Again, 60 schools in the queue. And you look at the number of sites that are on there and you say to yourself, well, yeah, even though it seems like a lot that's on the map, when you think about 60 schools in the queue, there's not 60 sites that are on that map. And so from that perspective, then where do we go? And so I think, again, that while we find ourselves in a good place, and my colleagues are absolutely right when it comes to the context of, well, we need the money at some point, we're also going to need the space too. And so it's figuring out what's going to happen when those things come about, which I think are important as well.